This week on Ohio's Influence in the West, the Ohio Connection that spanned Western history from 1820s through the 1880s. Last week, we introduced Lieutenant Caspar Collins of Company G of the 11th Ohio Volunteer Cavalry, the son of William Collins, the colonel of that same regiment. And so if I'm going to talk about Caspar, who wasn't born until the 1840s, then why did I say the 1820s that spanned the 1880s? The reason, or I should say, what generational connection am I talking about? None other than the one and only Jim Bridger, the Mountain Man. That one man seems to have been involved in many of the major events in Western history. As many of you already know, we first find Jim Bridger at least making a name for himself when he was one of the ones that was left behind to take care of the mountain man Hugh Glass that was attacked by the grizzly bear and left for dead, for fear of his own safety. Jim Bridger's life is the definition of an adventure spanning the fur trade and extending into the later Plains Indian Wars more than 40 years later. So fast forward to Sunday, June 16th of 1862, and our young Caspar Collins from Hillsboro, Ohio, finds himself riding on patrols with Jim Bridger as their scout and guide. Caspar's early letters describe Jim Bridger as a colorful but a very capable guide. Caspar describes that after a fun time of target practice at the base of Devil's Gate near Independence Rock, Bridger bluntly states that he is leaving the patrol for a better camping spot than where the soldiers were camping, and he just left the group and head up to a canyon to get out of the Wyoming wind and build, quote, a large fire to stay warm. Also, one of Caspar's most memorable moments with the old mountain man stated the following when they were camping overnight during a rainstorm. It was amusing to see old Major Bridger cooking his supper. He would take a whole jackrabbit and a trout about 18 inches long and put them in 2 sticks and set them up before the fire and eat them both without a particle of salt and drink about a quart of strong coffee. He says when he was young, he has often eaten the whole side ribs of a buffalo. And of course, one thing I love to think about in the dynamic situation between Caspar Collins, a young 17, 18-year-old man, and of course the old Jim Bridger, is that Jim Bridger was known as a teller of tall tales. And it's interesting, or maybe fun, to think about how many tales that were not so true that Caspar believed in his youth or his ignorance. So just something I want to throw out there, that putting a human dynamic to it, seeing a young man with an old just legend of the mountain man, the fur trade, the guide and the scouts that they know, seeing how naive old Caspar was. And of course, we don't have a whole lot of take on that, but definitely interesting and fun to think about. And so, with some of his ideas shaped by contact with men like the legendary Jim Bridger, it may not have seemed strange to Caspar that he too could develop relationships and friends with Indians. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about next week. And with that, we appreciate you watching another nugget of history on how the men of Ohio helped influence the Western frontier. Thanks again for watching, and until next week, ride hard.